Death, powered by Fear Paranormal. Tonight, we have a good friend of mine that I love dearly, and he should be very honored that his book is actually the only book that I've ever read from cover to cover because I couldn't put it down. Mr. Steven LaChance, how are you this evening?
I'm fine. I just started cracking up because I know you've had bronchitis. So the name of your show is, so you introduce yourself and you went, I'm Selena Roane and I'm close to death.
You know what? I feel kind of like I was close to death. I'm telling you, this 3-week bronchitis mess is killing me.
I've had it before. I know what you're feeling. That is not pretty at all.
No, you can't breathe. You sit around going,
No, you just feel miserable, huh?
Yeah. So
it's just you cracked me up with it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. On a plane for 3 hours. I got through about half of it, and even though I was interested, I haven't picked it back up yet.
You know what's funny though, Selena? I've had a lot of people that aren't readers that have read it, and I've had a lot of people say, you know what, your book is the only book I've ever read in my life, or I don't read and I read your book, and it's such an honor when somebody says that. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I mean, it kept me captivated so much that even a squirrel couldn't distract me with my ADD. So that's pretty good stuff, if I must say so. I'm
so honored.
I'm getting excited about Blessed Are the Wicked, and if I could get myself to sit down and have 10 minutes to myself to just start it, I know I won't stop reading it. It's a sequel. Can you tell us a little bit about The Uninvited, and then we'll go into what?
Well, The Uninvited, when you start The Uninvited goes through just a small section of history that leads up to May 18th of 2001 when we moved into a haunted house. And when I wrote it, the idea was, there's some personal reasons. I just, it was a way to get some things out. And so it's a personal narrative. When you read it, you'll actually feel like I'm sitting there talking to you, because that's the way I wrote it. I was like, well, how would I tell this story if I was telling it to someone and trying to explain it to them? So that's The Uninvited, and it talks about us moving to the house, the horrible things that happened to us, the kids being terrorized, the kids being chased, smoky figures going through rooms, full apparitions that you would see, and the terror that, the house screaming at us and locking the kids in a bedroom so we couldn't get to them, and, that sort of thing. And it goes through all of that stuff. And then how I lived after I left the haunting the first time. And then when somebody comes to me that is living in the house at that time and asks me to come help them figure it out and see if we could handle it. And that was disastrous results. And so the book goes through all of this and it explains it, and that's pretty much it. That's it in a nutshell, don't you think?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's very much so. I wish I could go back and read the first one so that I can, read Blessed Are the Wicked, because I know it's kind of a sequel, if you will.
Well, it is. It's a sequel in a way, but it's a standalone sequel in a way. So if you've never read The Uninvited, okay, and you want to pick up Blessed Are the Wicked, you could read that as a standalone book, because it does hold up that way. That was very important to me when, I decided to go ahead and tell the rest of it from. But for those of you that have read The Uninvited, and, I guarantee people that read Blessed Are the Wicked are going to go back to The Uninvited too. But for those of you that have read The Uninvited, the book Blessed starts on the day after The Uninvited ended. I mean, the story picks up right there and it goes on. But it's a little different in the fact because, as readers out there, you guys were very specific, a lot of people do not read the advice and suggestions that the readers have. And one of the things that was everything about the book was that you told us everything in the way that you needed to for the book, but we have so many questions now, you know. And so through the years of talking to people and stuff, you know, those questions that they had, I felt like I needed to answer them, for one. And then for the second part of it was, you know, people think you leave a haunted house and that haunting's over and it's done. Well, you know, I can remember after the first huge event in 2005, you know, we thought it was over. You know, we thought it was done. And Lorraine Warren said to us something that I thought was really puzzling. And as a matter of fact, she kind of aggravated me when she said it because I didn't understand. You know, what she said was the haunting's not over. And she goes, it's a long way from over. And I'm like, well, that's real optimistic, Lorraine. Thank you. You know, that's sort of thing. But as time went on after that, you know what? Lorraine was right. She was right. She was absolutely right. And so a public apology, because I don't think she ever knew I really felt that way, but, you know, a public apology because she was right, because the things that happened afterwards were devastating. And I look at it as a haunting as this, you know, especially this one is, you know, when you live through an earthquake and, you know, you got that first earthquake comes and it does major damage, right? Well, you know, what happens afterwards is you have a series of aftershocks. And sometimes those aftershocks are even more dangerous than the earthquake. And that is what a haunting is like. That is what it's like to live through a haunting. And so Lorraine was really right in what she had to say. So I thought, well, you know, let's go ahead and I'm going to tell the rest of it. And then research came available on the area there that explained the haunting pretty specifically, down to historical things. And I thought, well, I want everybody to understand that and get an understanding of why does a baby hang in the tree, you know, and what is this that's screaming, and why does this happen and why does that happen, and why do we get the EVP where the woman says its point of view is distracted in a southern tone. And, you know, I thought it was very important because one of the captain's family members, now the land was owned by a Civil War captain at one time. As a matter of fact, the Union House is built exactly on, and some believe part of the foundation of what was the slave quarters to his farm. So, so that was very important, but his family member came forward, and his family member came forward with pictures and explanations and all kinds of things. And his family member, you know, he said, you know, that we could talk about it, you know, and everything. He doesn't wish us to use his name because he, you know, he's got family that's going to be a little resentful that he told. So he doesn't want to cause a problem within the family. So basically we got a little bit of a paranormal deep throat going on there, you know, and, you know, so, and this, you know, and then there was the other side of it too, which is, when you make a decision and you say to yourself, I'm going to go public with something like this, and, you know, the things that you deal with based upon that decision and how it affects your life, or there's some really life-changing things that take place, and how people react to you and such. And I thought that was important to discuss as well, plus some of the other cases, because I continue with Missouri Paranormal Research, Paranormal Task Force, which, if anybody doesn't know, that's the group that I started that you probably, for those of you that are sci-fi fans, have seen in Children in the Grave, The Possessed, The Haunted Boy, that sort of thing. Which a lot of that research, as a matter of fact, most of that research that you see is lying. I was the first person in Zombie Road. I was the first person at the Union House, Morris Mill. I was one of the first people to investigate the Pythian. And The Exorcist, I was one of the first investigators to do the Exorcist case. So, you know, the book gets into some of that stuff. So I thought it was interesting to talk about those cases and some of the different type cases, including one of the exorcisms that I took part in. So the book is interesting. Huh?
I'm saying it is, because I was like, just the first book the first book I read. I know there's Crazy too, but The Uninvited. The thing about the clown. You know, I'm not scared of clowns. I think creepy clowns are cool as hell. Some people were frightened to death of them. And after reading that, I'm like, ooh, yeah, that might not all clowns.
The clown bothered me. Well, you know, the clown bothered me for the longest time because, you know, you have a 10-year-old boy that claims that the demonic clown is chased into the house. Well, you didn't call it the demonic clown at that time. You said a clown, but, came down the stairs after him. I mean, and then it was like I couldn't decide what that was all about. But, at one point it hit, getting to the haunting, how the haunting worked. And if you ever watched the haunting on the Discovery Channel, Fear House, which is based on the story, loosely based, where, it tells the story, but it doesn't in the Disney version. But if you watch that, it really does, doesn't it? And
yes, it does.
so because it was just it's not for your prime time kind of story.
Yeah.
I mean, the family sits down and watches a haunting produced by Kodak, and that's a little bit different. It's almost like watching something from the Disney Channel. But, this clown bothered me, but when you take it in the context of a haunting, Fear House, and you look at it, it fed on people's fears. Now, Elliot was always afraid of clowns. I couldn't take him to the circus, that sort of thing. So it was one of his fears that was being thrown back at him. And then also, if you've ever done research in demonic hauntings, you will find a lot of times a child would mistake a demon as a clown, by the way.
Oh, wow. That's crazy because, even when I was little, I was never afraid of clowns, but I have a friend that she's absolutely petrified of even a friendly looking clown. And I was like, I don't know if you have nightmares and stuff when you see clowns, I don't know if you should really read The Uninvited, although that is a great book. And she's like, yeah, I have really bad fears about clowns and things like that. And it freaked me out because I don't have the fear of that. But for the description in the book that you gave of the clown that was in that house, I think I would probably be pretty scared of him. He didn't seem like he wanted to blow me up an animal-shaped balloon or nothing like that.
No. It wasn't that at all. And the problem with it is I think the problem that, when we talk about the clown is that instantly you all get the vision of Pennywise from It, and I don't think that is exactly what he was seeing. I think, what he was seeing was something much, much darker, much more frightening, much more gothic in look, and from the descriptions of it, and very well, if you've seen Insidious, that movie Insidious, there's a point in that movie where there's something behind the guy and it's got the the scary clown looking face behind him. When I saw that movie, I thought to myself, man, that must have been closer to what it looked like. That was, it wasn't Bozo the Clown on acid. It was something closer to that,
Yeah. That clown was not anything to play with. I'm really excited.
Well, Elliot's here, just a second, Selena. Elliot's sitting in front of me. Am I right, Elliot? Yes, I'm right, you said so. I never asked him. It's something we don't see. A lot of people think that we sit around and we talk about this all the time, and we don't. I mean, we pretty much put it behind. Yeah, we put it behind, in a lot of ways. And, we live a very, very kind of boring, normal life, even though our house does look like the Amityville. Yeah.
Well, it's probably a good thing.
When we bought the new house, everybody was like, it looks like the Amityville. Huh? Yeah, it did. It played how, it's, but that's the nature of that type of haunting. What it is it's like a virus. And what it does is it infects, and then it kind of tentacles out, and it goes to, not only your family, but your friends, for anybody that comes in contact with it. And, at one point, the group was born in the middle of fire. You know what I'm saying? If you look at the task force, anybody that teaches with the task force, who they are and where they are, you can kind of understand the work and everything that we did through those years, because we were born, it was baptismal fire, because, here our first case was the president of their group's house. You know what I'm saying? And we were all taking stuff home with us. I mean, I had investigators that would wake up in the middle of the night. As a matter of fact, one of the investigators was thrown against the wall by a felt black mass in their bedroom. Divorces were happening, financial situations were falling apart. There were some mental health problems that happened. People just became not nice people. Everybody was turning on each other in a very short period of time, and it was very, very ugly.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's something that happens also with a friend of mine, Josh Hurd, when he did the Workman's Chapel there, and I believe it's
Mm-hmm.
Iowa. He had the same exact thing happen to them. They had the most profound paranormal experience where someone got almost choked, I believe, and scratched, and they all
Right.
took something home to where they were having issues with their marriage. One of their children got sick and almost died. Another guy got in a really bad car accident. I mean, all these things were happening because they believed there were attachments to them from that place. He's actually doing
Well,
a
see,
documentary on that place.
right, but that's the idea. See, and that's a great example because that's the way it works, and that's why there was a need for for Blessed to be done and Blessed to tell the stories, because you look at the uninvited and you see the uninvited, and it's my point of view, and I tell you what happened to me, and from my point of view, and that's still the same thing in the Blessed, but I do get into a little bit more of how it was affecting people around me, and the horrible things that happened to some of the people, and that just cannot be explained. When you have so many things happen in a very short time to a group of people, and some of them, very, very tragic. One thing you go, okay, two things go, okay, well, that's coincidence. Three things you go, maybe there's something wrong. Four things you go, uh-oh, and five things you go, I'm out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, really. And, because Helen, in the uninvited, she was the lady I went to help. And my dog is going to get her butt fed. She's chasing the cat around, Selena.
Oh.
But Helen gathered all of the people in the neighborhood up around her, the kids that were the kind of the misfit kids of the neighborhood, and they were teenagers. And then if you read The Uninvited, remember there was a point where Helen was going to kill her husband, and what she did was she was looking for a gun, and these teenagers were under the influence of this thing too, and they were helping her try to find a gun. Those kids, as a matter of fact, one of them gave her a serrated edge gun and said, use this because it'll cut better. Those kids that went through that, out of the majority of them, almost every single one of them is not right today or is not living today.
Oh, man. That's...
So, a lot of people look and say, well, why aren't you a part of a paranormal group anymore? And I get very specific and I tell exactly why. And I think some people are going to be surprised when they hear exactly why that is and what I went through that. Because I felt like at that point, because of what happened, I don't want to give it away. Because it is a story for people to read, I guess, so I got to be careful. But, so the things that happened, I felt like it was because of my involvement that they were happening. And I felt like I might have been putting people at risk, which is not true at all, but that was the way it was working on me at the time. So, that's kind of, it gets into more of an explanation of it, but that's kind of why I left, group research. And I went out on my own to help people on my own. Always before I would tell people, was because I couldn't help people with 26 people, which was true. There was times when I would have to tell the team, pack up, you're not doing EVP in here. That's true, but there were some other deeper, darker reasons for it too, and I was never comfortable enough to talk about it. So I wrote the book, The Uninvited, and a woman from Shreveport, Louisiana, named Miss Pittman, who, by the way, is Dakota Lawrence's grandmother. She was in her 80s, and she sat me down one night, and she said, listen, she goes, you have another book to write here. The woman was extremely psychic, by the way, probably one of the most psychic women I've ever met in my life, and probably one of the most interesting and compassionate people I've ever met in my life, by the way. So I said, no, I don't want to go there again. Stuff's too painful. And she said, no. She goes, that's why you have to do it. So she talked me into writing Blessed, and when I started it, there would be times when I would stop and I would say, man, I can't do this, It's just too tough. As soon as I would do that, Selena, the phone would ring, and there was Maria on the other line, and she'd go, "How's that book coming, Steven?" And I go, and I'd say to her, I go, Maria, I'm not writing it right now because it's just so hard. I mean, and she goes, you know what? She goes, life's tough, honey. Nobody told you it was ever going to be a bed of roses.
Oh, wow.
She goes, she gets writing that book. So, the interesting thing is I put the last word of the book down 2 weeks before her death.
That, you know what?
The book is dedicated
that has really moved Dakota losing his grandmother. And he told me that she had abilities and things like that. I had no idea it was to that extent. The way Chip always says it is, if he tells me something that maybe is going to happen or whatever, and it happens, and I'll go, dude, it happened. He goes, I'm psychic and shit. So maybe that's every time you gave up on the book, she could tell that and was like, no, you better get back on the book. So that's a pretty cool story.
She really knew it needed to be done. I mean, she felt, and the thing is I thought her out in all the way. I mean, I thought about this book all the way. I mean, that's why it took 2.5 years to write it. Because I would literally stop. I mean, because there were nights, Selena. I mean, there was one night, I remember I was writing into the middle of the night, and I had, I was home alone, and I had every light in the house on, even including the outside lights. I mean, it was scaring me, and I knew, and I was like, well, man, if I'm bringing this stuff back up scares me to this extent, I mean, you guys are in for something, I think. Because, I just couldn't shake some of it. And, the interesting part of it is I was living in an apartment that something very, very horrible happened to one of the kids before I moved into it, in the haunting. And I'll tell you, and the book will tell you about that. One of the kids was given a fatal dose of heroin, and it happened right where I was sitting writing the book. So there was some very, and the thing is what's interesting about that, Selena, is I didn't know it when I moved in there. Didn't know it. And I was told later. Wow. And it was, and I had already started the book, so the book was I was writing the book in the middle of the battle zone, basically, and it was, there was times when it was really, really tough. The activity would get to a point at sometimes where I would be like, okay, this isn't good, But I'm glad I did it, though.
Do you think that that writing the book not only is helping other people, but do you think it was sort of a possible therapy for you to kind of go back over it and try to walk through it again? Do you think that?
Well, I thought the uninvited, I thought the uninvited was therapy, really. I thought, that was all the therapy I needed until I wrote this one, really. And then, this one I realized this was the therapy that I needed. I think when you read it, you'll understand that. Now, a lot of people, when they look at the title, Blessed Are the Wicked, they think that title, that's a scary title. But the title, you're going to find out really the title's more about forgiveness than it is a frightening concept. Because at some point, I realized that, I had to forgive some things and realize my participation in some things in order to be able to move it, to put it to rest and move on. And so when you got the idea of Blessed Are the Wicked is I basically, I said I forgive, and I bless all those people that hurt me and hated me and did these things to me, and most importantly to the demon that tried to ruin my life, because even the wicked need to be blessed. Blessed are the wicked. That's what it's about. And that's the conclusion that I came to. And that conclusion was enlightening. And I mean, you can't understand how enlightening that is when you come to that conclusion and you realize, because when you put that kind of blessing on those things that tried to destroy you, what are you doing? You're taking the power away from them. And that's what I did, is I took the power away from them. And I was able to move on. So, I mean, the answer is yes, and you can understand why now, because it took me to places, and you take that journey with me, it took me to places that I needed to go and things that I needed to settle, and I settled them as I was writing it. And that's why this book is so important to me as a person, more so than anything else, because it was part of my healing.
Yeah, that.
And I think Marie knew that,
Selena,
by the way.
Excuse me?
I said, I think Miss Pittman knew that. I think Miss Pittman knew that. I think she realized that I needed that.
I'm sure she did. I mean, if she was anything like a Dakota, because he calls me his paranormal wifey, and it's so funny because he'll either be my paranormal dad or he'll be my paranormal hubby. It just depends on the situation, but he always tries to guide me because he can see kind of things that are going to happen and where this stuff is kind of going. And at times I'm like,
well, if he's your paranormal dad, that makes me your paranormal grandpa. You realize that now, don't you?
Oh no, we can't have that. And it's so weird.
No, we can't actually. No, we can't. So, but I'm sorry I had to do that. But yeah, as talented as he is, she was hands down over fist 100% more, if you can imagine.
Wow.
So I would get calls from her, and she'd say, and sometimes it would just be one word. Why is this word? When my son Eli, everybody knows my son Eli has a social conscience, and he does some things. He was protesting a chemical plant, and I don't read the chemical plant. He had the name Penny in it. Okay, so he's at this protest, and I'm worried about it because anytime protest, we do Ferguson with a different story, but when you looked at he was out there, and I'm like, well, I don't want him to get arrested or whatever. So while he's there, I get this phone call, and it's this thing, and she's like, why does Penny and your name keep coming to mind today? And I went, holy smokes! I'm like, and then she goes, well, he'll be all right. Don't worry. It was really interesting. So she's incredible.
It could get scary. That could get a little scary though if somebody knew everything that was going on. And was that in tune, but that's so cool, and I'm glad you guys had that connection because obviously she was a pretty amazing person. It affected Dakota quite big. Excuse me?
So I'm going to miss her for the rest of my life. She's one of those people that had a tremendous effect upon me. And it's been a rough year, Selena. I mean, I lost a lot of people this year, including Miss Pittman, last year, including Miss Pittman. And then, for those of you that read The Uninvited, Helen died on December 6th. So those, so those people were very important people in my life. So it's been a little bit of a rough time. So things are. I think the grief part I think is coming to. I think you grieve always, but it's not to the extent it was because it's been a tough road. So
yeah, I totally understand that mourning era, and that you have to get on with things because they wouldn't like it if you just sat around and was sad. That's what they kept telling me when I lost my mom, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's a lot easier said than actually done when you lose somebody that's extremely close to you, and especially with two of them not so far apart. And they were two very important ladies in your life. So I can only imagine how that has been for the last, year.
At the moment, and, this is really interesting too. At the moment, Miss Pittman was dying in the hospital, dying. I mean, she was on her deathbed. She was dying. Within the same half an hour of her death, my youngest granddaughter was born.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Not cool
I just
that she passed. It's kind of weird, though, because that is kind of weird.
Well, they say that one soul exits and one soul enters. And it was strange. Yeah, it's what happened and how it happened. So
wow.
So I was celebrating the birth of my grandchild at the same time.
Yeah. It's kind of hard when you got a little mourning going on, some sadness and happiness. Talk about an emotional roller coaster in one day. Jesus Louise. That's a lot on one person. I'm sure it did.
Can you hear these cicadas? Pardon me?
Excuse me?
Can you not hear me tonight?
No, I feel like I'm walking over you, and I can't. Sometimes
I don't know what something's going on with the connection, because I think I might be coming into you maybe a couple seconds later than what I'm actually saying it.
Yeah.
I think because you and I don't go over each other like this, so I know it's something in the connection. So it's kind of funny. So I thought I'd point it out to everybody. We usually don't talk like this, guys.
No, we're usually pretty fluid and not a problem. I was going to ask you about your radio show.
Oh, man.
Are you going to do that?
Yes. Yes, okay. The radio show now, I know what you're thinking, because you're going to go, Steven, are you going to do it on Penn? Well, the way I'm doing it, from what I understand, and Eric, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but because I'm going to be going on DTM, I think it's DTM Wicked, and, one of the places they broadcast from, I believe, is Penn, by the way.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, and that's good.
By default, Stephen, you are on Penn. By default, you did make it to Penn, Stephen, and we couldn't be happier to have you.
Well, I'm excited too, my friend. It's been a long time coming, but I decided, after, I get the book launch going, I wanted to go back because I missed it, but I wanted to do something, and why I went DTM is because I knew that, there's some regular feeds that go out of there to regular radio. There's also some satellite feeds, and there's also Penn was, important to me when that name came up, obviously, because, I love you guys so much. And so I'm pretty excited about it. You'll see it in November. It looks like it's going to be Tuesday nights. And the show is called Steven LaChance's The Fear. The Fear, anybody that has followed me through the years knows that the first radio show I did for the paranormal was called Haunted Survivor, and then after Haunted Survivor, it was Fear Frequency, which everybody just called it Fear, and so the show, after a mere period of time, just became known as The Fear, so I'm keeping the same name. And we're going to it's not going to be totally paranormal, though. It's going to be more of a talk soup type thing with an edge, We'll do paranormal. I'll also be doing serial killers and all kinds of things. So get ready. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I like the name already. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I said I love the name. I know that for a fact. Seeing as it's
right, I know you love the name.
Yeah.
I know. I thought that when you tell everybody, because I said when I decided on the name, I wrote it. It's like, I put the name of my radio show. I'm going to keep The Fear, and you were like, I said, I think you'll like that name, don't you?
Yeah, I do love that name. What I'm excited about too is History Haunts and Legends November 1st that you and me and Dakota are all going to be at, and I'm hoping Eric will be there too. I haven't heard yet, but I can't wait to see you again. We missed you last time.
Well, you know what? The thing is that's a good point. I mean, I'm coming all the way down to Texas, so it seems like Mr. Eric would be there.
Yeah, I would think.
I can't wait either. Hey, Selena, we're gonna go get barbecue again. We gotta get barbecue when we're down there.
I believe we should. I think that we're gonna have some good times because Dakota and I have already discussed doing a couple things while we're in Jefferson together. So we're pretty excited about it, and I can't wait for next weekend. I wish you were going to New Orleans with us because that's going to be a lot of fun too. What do you have coming up on your tour? Because I know you have your tour is going to start, and when is that?
It starts.
Your book.
It starts. Well, the official book release is September 8th. Is when it'll trickle into bookshelves before then. They always do, but the official, when everything is down except for the UK. The UK and other world releases are on October 5th. But in the United States, the release is September 8th. So on September 11th, we're going to be doing winery. It's an art gallery that it's a wine bar and art gallery. And what that is anybody that wants to come can come. I mean, there's no cover to it whatsoever. We got a cast bar, because that was the way we could do it and make sure everybody. It was important to me that I wanted to release the book in St. Louis, in Missouri, where a lot of this happened, and I wanted to be able to say, okay, all of you who supported my work. And that I wrote this book for, because I wrote Blessed for the people to read the uninvited. Really, I mean, if you think about it, I wanted it to be accessible, the celebration of the release of the book, accessible to them if they wanted to come. So it's going to be at the Dino Art Gallery on September 11th. That's the first thing. It's the big party that night, and we're going to celebrate. That's what it is, a celebration. And then after that, Friday, right now, we're going to take a break, I think, but you never know within that. She can probably put me back to work anyway. But yeah. Saturday, we're doing, Saturday, the 13th, we're doing a place called Urban Eats. And Urban Eats is, it's a health food kind of place with, art gallery as well. We'll be there in the afternoon. We're doing Barnes & Noble Saturday night in Chesterfield, Missouri, which is right outside of St. Louis. We'll do the book signing there. On Sunday, we're doing the Cosmoma Ballroom, which is in St. Louis, and it's on historic Cherokee Street, just right down the street from the Lund Mansion, for those of you that know about the Lund. We're going to be there in the Cosmoma Ballroom. It's an old-time ballroom that Frank Sinatra, Martin and Lewis, those type of people performed in. So I'm going to speak there at the Cosmoma Ballroom, and after I get done speaking, they're going to hold a seance in the ballroom. So that's going to be really cool. And then on the, here we go. That's the 14th. And then on there's another one called, this bar called The Honk. We're going to do a signing there. And I forgot the date on that. I think that's the 27th. Maybe. I got to ask her. And then we're going to do the Haunted Harney Mansion, Harneyey, not Horney. But I always think, because I always say Harney, and everybody goes, well, I have a Harney Mansion. What are you talking about? It's that good old Missouri accent that does it. But, it's like, and it's like, when they do that, they look at me and I'm like, yeah, it's the Missouri Playboy Mansion, of course. But, so, anybody that's ever seen my first book is The Uninvited, you see me leaning against the door in The Uninvited, in the picture of me in the book, that's the Harney Mansion. It's an old Civil War mansion that's haunted as hell. And we're going to be doing a Civil War days out there, because the book does have a Civil War flavor to it, which you'll find out as you read it. But, so we're going to do that, and then there's some other things. God, there's so much on the calendar, I can't even tell you. I know we're coming down to Jefferson. We're doing the Sloss Furnace. We booked something today that's huge that I can't tell you about, that I want to tell you about so much, but I have to wait till they announce it. But for those of you that like fun in the sun, let me just give you a hint. Get ready. This one's sick.
Wow, that's cool.
I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be real busy.
Yeah, it looks like my calendar's pretty much full too.
Yeah, you know how it does. I mean, it fills up. It is like, and you never know, and you're going to add things to it. The idea is to start the book tour in St. Louis and then move out from there. And what I wanted to do in Shreveport, Louisiana, because I'm going to do, we're doing that weekend in Jefferson, then I'm going to come back into Shreveport and I'm going to do some things there, that being Miss Pittman's hometown. And the book being dedicated to her, it was really important for me to do something there to honor her. So I'm going to be doing some things to honor her in Shreveport. And then we're going to head to Chicago. We're going to be doing some things in Chicago, New York, and we're going to go all the way to the West Coast. So it's going to be busy.
Wow. It is
Well,
going to be
you know,
awesome. I can't
you know,
wait for us to be at Slaw's Furnace.
it's a worldwide release. It's a worldwide release, Selena. I mean, so when you have a book that's like that, you know, is it's going to be in foreign language and everything else eventually. I mean, so those book tours are generally, it's not like Crazy. Crazy was a more specific book. I wrote Crazy more for the paranormal than anything. But when you look at the Uninvited and the Blessed, that reaches so many more audiences than just a paranormal audience. So, you know, they're huge books, and they require a lot more of you than just like something with Crazy, where I could just do, you know, some paranormal events. So, by the way, if anybody ever reads Crazy, that book is crazy. Like, this is nuts. I love that book.
I was kind of nervous you might have followed me around or something and wrote a book about me. I don't know. It was like so fitting that the title, Crazy. I was like, oh, I think I might resemble that remark a little bit. So I do have to
no,
that
the book, if the book would have been about you, the book would have been called Sweetheart.
Oh, you're so sweet. I got you snowed, huh, Eric? No.
Yeah, you sure do. You sure do,
No comment. So what else do you have going on besides your crazy book tour? Are you going to do any more cool documentaries? Are you working on anything like that you can tell us about?
About 5.
You kind of take
About 5. Well, Monstrosity is still there. The werewolf film, we're still working on funding for that. It looks like the funding might be coming together here pretty quick on it. So we'll be doing that, and that story starts in Oklahoma, and it's actually on the Indian reservations where we're going to discuss shapeshifters and something that's terrorizing the Arapaho reservation down in Oklahoma. So we're going to do that, and then we're going out to L.A., and there's an area in L.A. in gangland where in the 90s all the gang violence was happening. That's very, very haunted. And we're going to do a documentary about it. And the interesting thing, it's going to be paranormal. We're going to show you the paranormal things that happen there. But the idea behind it is to show you how negative situations like the gang thing with the killings and everything and the police and everything, how that events and those events and those deaths and the vast number of deaths that occurred during it left a mark. And that mark is taking this community down some very negative roads, and it's going to be really interesting. And the film cameras are going to follow the investigation. As a matter of fact, we have to go in with gang members to this area or we would be killed. So the film cameras are going to follow us going in, and the idea is to show how we're changed from the beginning to the end with what we see and what we experience and the stories we learn. One of the stories is about a drug dealer named Horse. Horse was tied up to the back of a cop car, and he was drugged down the street, and he killed. And at the moment his girlfriend found out that he was killed, she went to the closet of her bedroom and took a fatal dose of heroin. So we're going to tell the story, and we're going to go to the location because both are very, very haunted still today. So it's going to be a heavy film in some ways, but enlightening in a way too, because if you can understand what causes these kinds of tears and causes these places to have this negative thing that won't go away from them, I think that's valuable. And also there's a pretty good social message there. So that one we're doing. There's another one I'm doing that, let's just say is a little bit angelic. So there's about 5 of them we got going. And so those are going to be really exciting. And then for those of you that are, and I'll announce this now, I guess, because we got Blessed coming out on Good Friday of 2015. That's coming Good Friday this year. I'm doing something that I wanted to do, which is the first story in the book Crazy is 163 pages, and I'm redoing that story. And adding more to it because there's some more information I want to put in it. And I'm going to do a special Crazy release, and that'll be on Good Friday. And then the following fall, and it should be done by then, is going to be the first fiction book that comes from me, and it's going to be called House of Grace, and that deals with it's an Armageddon book basically. So we've got a lot going on, man.
Yeah. Do you have time to take a nap anytime, or is that just out of the question about right now?
Well, people will come, Steve, you haven't been, oh, we haven't seen you. And it's like, well, I think you guys are kind of getting the hint now. Why? Because, it's like I love going out and I love seeing people. I love talking. I love meeting everybody. But but the reason we're all there is because of the work I produced and learning from it and being able to sit down and discuss it and meet new people and become friends and stuff. But you have to do the work first to get there, don't you? So there's sometimes when you have to retreat for a period of time, and that's what I've been doing lately, until the book launch happens, to do some of this work and get it lined up so we can keep it going and keep new things and exciting things coming out for the people that care. Because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't do this anyway, because it's your interest in it and your support of me that keeps me going, so.
Well, you definitely got my support. They're asking in the chat room if you are coming to Minnesota at any time.
I definitely am coming to Minnesota. And I haven't set it up yet. But the reason I'm coming to Minnesota is Blessed Are the Wicked is published by Llewellyn. Llewellyn is the publisher of that book. And anybody that knows anything knows that they're in Minnesota. So I want to go. What we're going to do, I'm going to be setting up with Baby Felicia from Llewellyn. We're going to go in, and we're going to do a public thing while I'm there, but also I'm going to go to Llewellyn, and I'm going to do something private in the publishing house for the people that have put all of the really, really hard work into both those books. So definitely Minnesota. Absolutely.
Awesome. How about Dallas? Are you going to come to Dallas at any point in time? Because you know that we're going to have to take you to dinner if you do.
Really, I think you're psychic, in some ways. And I'm not going to tell you why Dallas, but yeah, Dallas is on the map.
Awesome. I can't wait. We'll definitely take you. If you love seafood, we'll definitely take you to dinner. If you don't, they got other things.
Well, I'm not coming to Dallas without seeing you. Come on.
I would hope not. For everyone that, excuse me, there's another question. Will there be a book signing on the 11th, and they missed where?
The book signing here, what we're doing, that's the party. That's the celebration at the wine gallery, at the wine art gallery, where everybody can come, and you can, like I said, with the cash bar, but there's no requirement of anybody to spend a dime there, actually, but coming to, hang out and enjoy some art, and we're going to be talking and, just having a good time. We'll do some book signings. If you want to bring your books that you have, bring them with you. We'll sign them then. Also, if you don't have Blessed, if you want Blessed, I'll make sure I have copies for you if you already pre-ordered it, because I don't know if you know it, but Blessed Are the Wicked has broke pre-sale records for a paranormal book. So for those of you that have pre-ordered and you already got your copies, bring those with you and I'll sign them too. Because that night is about celebrating the book and how I'm able to do what I'm able to do and all the people that help me able to do it. If you could make it to one event that's coming up real soon, that's the event you want to be at, because that's the one that I really, really, really wanted to do for y'all.
Awesome. And where can they find your books and things like that so that they can get a copy and get these books read? Where exactly do they go to do that?
For right now, Uninvited and Crazy, you can get through the website. Also, you can get any of my books. You can get Amazon, Kindle, Nook, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any bookstore out there. If they don't have it, it can be ordered in. But I found that the majority of bookstores have them on the shelves.
Okay.
I look.
What about your appearances? Do they go on your Facebook page, or where can they find?
There's a Facebook page called Blessed Are the Wicked. Come over to the page, like it. We'll keep the things updated there, and then eventually, and I haven't got the chance to update the website, but eventually a calendar will go there. The website is Steven A, like Apple, LaChance.com. It's my full name, StevenLaChance.com. Come over there, and we'll here in the next week or so, you'll see a calendar go up there as well. So, we're trying to get the information out to everybody as best we can. So, it's going to be a very, very busy time. and I want to see as much of everybody as I can because I haven't got to see you all in a while. And if you notice, Selena, I'm not doing a lot of convention-y type things. And the reason I'm not doing that is because the conventions kind of limit your exposure and the time that you can spend with the people that come and see you. You know that. You know how it is. It's kind of like a lot of the conventions that kind of got this. I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but a kind of a flea market thing where, the crowds are pushing people down and you can just spend a minute with someone. I'm doing more things where I can actually spend some quality time with people when they come, because I think that's very important, because I appreciate, that's the thing, right? And I think some people, you go out to these things and they're there and it's almost like an ego thing. See me, see me, see me. I'm different about that because I want to go out there and I want to be able to spend some time and really get to spend time with the people that are, supportive of what I do, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing it. So, I have to make it about them.
Exactly, and I'm glad that you do, because there are some people in this community that once they get a little bit of fame at all, that goes to their head and they forget exactly who made that happen for them. And it's really sad.
It always aggravates me because I'm like, you know what? At the end of the night, I'm going to take my pants off one leg at a time. And in the morning, I'm going to put my pants on one leg at a time. And I think a lot of times what you guys see out there is people put out this idea that there's something they're not. Because when you're at those events, it's bad for us, the people that are doing it too, because it's not real life in some senses, because when and some people don't understand how normal life. I live a very normal life, with, a house, my son lives here, a dog, a cat. I'm very much a loner in some ways. But, when I go out and stuff, I always remind myself when I'm coming home, I'm like, this is the real life, and, and that's why it's so important to me. And you'll see me do this from time to time on Facebook, is I'll say, here, this is who I am, this is what I am about. Because there's a lot of people, even some people I've seen, they'll stand in front of sports cars and stuff and act like that's their life, or stand in a hotel lobby next to a piano and make everybody believe that's the life they're living when they're living in some small house in DFE. So, there you go.
Yeah. I love that. And I appreciate you so
much.
I appreciate you so much.
It's true.
It is true. It is.
If everybody would stop and just, I don't, and realize that everybody is just like everybody else. There's nothing that really, different. I get to do, I write. It's what I like to do. It's good. I get to do the things that I get to do. But I've always kept in mind that everything I've done, and if you go through my history of the stuff that I've done, you will see that everything I've done has been really not for the paranormal. I appreciate the support I get the paranormal, but most everything I've done is for the guy that's sitting on his couch at home, that doesn't get to experience these. It's that average guy, because really, in all intents and purposes, that's who I am. I'm a father, a grandfather first, before I'm anything else. And I've just been fortunate in some ways, but I'm not stupid, and I'm not pig-headed, and I don't have an ego that goes to Kansas and back, to not realize that, at any moment, it's because of the support of those who support me that I get to do what I do. And I'm not any better than them, and I'm not any different than them. I live the same kind of lives as anybody else, and I'm not going to go out and try to impress you with something I'm not, and I'm so sick of seeing that. I'm done. Because it's like, I don't know how many times I have seen people misguide people and mislead people and think they're living some kind of life they're not. I can step out of a limousine, I can see a limousine on the street, Selena, and then I can run over to it and act like I'm getting out of it. I can go to a hotel and make you think that some big room is my living room, and I could do all of these things, when the truth of the matter is you see it, because I'll put pictures of my house up, this is my house, this is where I live, and I'm not trying to do that, because I think it's so disingenuous, it's dishonest, it takes any good work that you might possibly do, and it throws it out the door, and I'm sick of people doing it. You know, I'm sick of them giving us a bad name, and exactly that's how they're doing it. We're being used, we're being manipulated, and I don't like to be manipulated. I know you don't.
No, definitely not. Well, Stephen, we have to wrap it up, and I wanted to thank you so much for being on my show, and I will see you soon.
You know I love you.
I love you too, and thank you again for being on. I'll talk to you soon, honey.
No. Oh, anytime, have me on. I love you too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was the awesome Steven LaChance. You have got to get all of his books, actually. I need to read Crazy, and I also need to get The Blessed Are the Wicked, but The Uninvited was absolutely amazing, so get a copy of it and start reading there. We have a couple of announcements. This coming up weekend, Dakota Lawrence will be in New Orleans at the Gemini. There are tickets on NOLAGhostHuntingTours.com. Get yours now. We're almost sold out. Phantom Fest in San Antonio at the Minger Hotel, September 26th and 27th. I'll be broadcasting live from there. October 3rd through the 5th is Mississippi Parafest in Vicksburg, Mississippi. October 18th, the Beckham Spirit Fest in Mineola, Texas at the Beckham Hotel. And what we were talking about earlier, November 1st, at History, Haunts, and Legends in Jefferson, Texas. I have 3 sponsors I'd like to thank. Miss Hattie's in Belton, Texas. Galena's Murder Bordello in Galena, Kansas. And NOLA Ghost Hunting Tours in New Orleans. And next week, I will have a show for you that you will not want to miss. It's Rob Demarest, so don't miss it. I will be in New Orleans, so this is a taped show, but don't miss Rob Demarest, and I will have a good week. Peace out.
And the terror that, you know, the house screaming at us and locking the kids in a bedroom so we couldn't get to them, and, you know, that sort of thing. And it goes through all of that stuff. And then how I lived after I left the haunting the first time. And then when somebody comes to me that is living in the house at that time and asked me to come help them figure it out and see if we could handle it. And that was disastrous results. And so the book goes through all of this and it explains it. And that's pretty much it. That's it in a nutshell, don't you think?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's very much so. I wish I could go back and read the first one so that I can, you know, read Blessed Are the Wicked, because I know it's kind of a sequel, if you will.
Well, it is. It's a sequel in a way, but it's a standalone sequel in a way. You know, so if you've never read The Uninvited, okay, and you want to pick up Blessed Are the Wicked, you could read that as a standalone book, because it does hold up that way. That was very important to me when, you know, I decided to go ahead and tell the rest of it from. But for those of you that have read The Uninvited, and, you know, I guarantee people that read Blessed Are the Wicked are going to go back to The Uninvited too. But for those of you that have read The Uninvited, the book of Blessed starts on the day after The Uninvited ended. I mean, the story picks up right there and it goes on. But it's a little different in the fact because, you know, as readers out there, you guys were very specific, you know. A lot of people do not read the advice and suggestions that the readers have. And one of the things that was everything about the book was that you told us everything in the way that you needed to for the book. But we have so many questions now, you know. And so through the years of talking to people and stuff, you know, those questions that they had, I felt like I needed to answer them, for one. And then for the second part of it was, you know, people think you leave a haunted house and that haunting's over and it's done. Well, you know, I can remember after the first huge event in 2005, you know, we thought it was over. You know, we thought it was done. And
so
you cracked me up with that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. On a plane for 3 hours. I got through about half of it, and even though I was interested, I haven't picked it back up yet.
You know what's funny though, Selena? I've had a lot of people that aren't readers that have read it. And, you know, I've had a lot of people say, you know what, your book is the only book I've ever read in my life. Or, you know, I don't read and I read your book, you know. And that's such an honor when somebody says that. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. I mean, it kept me captivated so much that even a squirrel couldn't distract me with my ADD. So that's pretty good stuff, if I must say so. I'm
so honored.
I'm getting excited about Blessed Are the Wicked, and if I could get myself to sit down and have 10 minutes to myself to just start it, I know I won't stop reading it. Because it's a sequel. Can you tell us a little bit about The Uninvited, and then we'll go into what?
Well, The Uninvited, when you start The Uninvited goes through just a small section of history that leads up to May 18th of 2001 when we moved into a haunted house. And when I wrote it, the idea was, there's some personal reasons. I just, it was a way to get some things out. And so it's a personal narrative. When you read it, you'll actually feel like I'm sitting there talking to you, because that's the way I wrote it. I was like, well, how would I tell this story if I was telling it to someone and trying to explain it to them? So that's The Uninvited, and it talks about us moving to the house, the horrible things that happened to us, the kids being terrorized, the kids being chased, smoky figures going through rooms, full apparitions that you would see.
Powered by Fear Paranormal. Tonight, we have a good friend of mine that I love dearly, and he should be very honored that his book is actually the only book that I've ever read from cover to cover, because I couldn't put it down. Mr. Steven LaChance, how are you this evening?
I'm fine. I just started cracking up because I know you've had bronchitis. So the name of your show is, you introduce yourself and you went, I'm Selena Roane and I'm close to death.
You know what? I feel kind of like I was close to death. I'm telling you, this 3-week bronchitis mess is killing me.
I've had it before. I know what you're feeling. That is not pretty at all.
No, you can't breathe. You sit around going,
No, just feel miserable, huh?
Yeah.
Rain Warren said to us something that I thought was really puzzling, and as a matter of fact, she kind of aggravated me when she said it, because I didn't understand. What she said was the haunting's not over. And she goes, it's a long way from over. And I'm like, well, that's real optimistic, Lorraine. Thank you. That's sort of thing. But as time went on after that, you know what? Lorraine was right. She was right. She was absolutely right. And so a public apology, because I don't think she ever knew I really felt that way, but, a public apology because she was right, because the things that happened afterwards were devastating. And I look at it as a haunting as this, especially this one is, when you live through an earthquake and, you got that first earthquake comes and it does major damage, right? Well, what happens afterwards is you have a series of aftershocks. And sometimes those aftershocks are even more dangerous than the earthquake. And that is what a haunting is like. That is what it's like to live through a haunting. And so Lorraine was really right in what she had to say. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and I'm going to tell the rest of it. And then research came available on the area there that explained the haunting pretty specifically, down to historical things. And I thought, well, I want everybody to understand that and get an understanding of why does a baby hang in the tree, and what is this that's screaming, and why does this happen, and why does that happen, and why did we get the EVP where the woman says its point of view is distracted in a southern tone? And I thought it was very important because one of the captain's family members, now the land was owned by a Civil War captain at one time. As a matter of fact, the Union House is built exactly on, and some believe part of the foundation of what was the slave quarters to his farm. So, so that was very important, but his family member came forward, and his family member came forward with pictures and explanations and all kinds of things. And his family member, he said, that we could talk about it, and everything. He doesn't wish us to use his name because, he's got family that's going to be a little resentful that he told. So he doesn't want to cause a problem within the family. So basically we got a little bit of a paranormal deep throat going on there, and, so, and then there was the other side of it too, which is, when you make a decision and you say to yourself, I'm going to go public with something like this, and, the things that you deal with based upon that decision and how it affects your life, or there's some really life-changing things that take place, and how people react to you and such, and I thought that was important to discuss as well, plus some of the other cases, because I continue with Missouri Paranormal Research, Paranormal Task Force, which, if anybody doesn't know, that's the group that I started that you probably, for those of you that are sci-fi fans, have seen in Children in the Grave, The Possessed, The Haunted Boy, that sort of thing. Which a lot of that research, as a matter of fact, most of that research that you see is lying. I was the first person in Zombie Road. I was the first person at the Union House, Morris Mill. I was one of the first people to investigate the Pythian. And The Exorcist, I was one of the first investigators to do the Exorcist case. So, the book gets into some of that stuff. So I thought it was interesting to talk about those cases and some of the different type cases, including one of the exorcisms that I took part in. So the book is interesting. Huh?
I'm saying it is because I was like, just the first book the first book I read. I know there's Crazy too, but The Uninvited. The thing about the clown. I'm not scared of clowns. I think creepy clowns are cool as hell. Some people were frightened to death of them, and after reading that, I'm like, ooh, that might not all clowns.
The clown bothered me. Well, the clown bothered me for the longest time because, you have a 10-year-old boy that claims that a demonic clown is chased into the house. Well, he didn't call it the demonic clown at that time. He said a clown, but came down the stairs after him. I mean, and then it was like I couldn't decide